Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Enormous Game Publishers CEO, Nigel Oliver. Thank you so much. Welcome to E3, everyone. Woo! We are so happy to be here today in Los Angeles. I know some of you may have an idea of what we're announcing today thanks to more than a few internet leaks. Hey, I kept telling management we should have a plumber on payroll. Yeah. So let's cut to the chase. After all of these years, we're finally returning to the franchise that millions of gamers around the globe have fallen in love with. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Tides of Reckoning 2. Woo! Tides of Reckoning 2 takes everything about the original game and raises it to bold new heights. Woo! The open world is twice as vast. See that mountain over there? Well, let's just say it doesn't just add to the scenery. Player choice governs everything, and I promise you that every decision matters. I swear, if you so much as step on an ant, it could very well result in the death of your best friend down the line. My advice, choose wisely. Woo! Our hero returns wearing the emotional and physical scars inflicted by the shocking events of the first game. But for the first time ever, you can play him as a her. That's right, players can now choose their genders. High five, ladies! Woo! But the equality doesn't stop there, because for the first time in gaming history, Tides of Reckoning 2 will allow the players to choose the genders of every single NPC in our world. If you want nothing but bros to roam the open world, have at it. Yeah! If you'd like to have a global sorority, we're not stopping you. Our studio is woke, ladies and gentlemen, and we believe this is the next step in giving everyone what they want. Woo! Did I mention loot boxes? No? That's because I almost forgot to say that we have them. Thanks for reminding me. Now, I know loot boxes are a touchy subject, but we believe we found a way to put the fun back into them. So here's what we have for Tides of Reckoning 2. With every loot crate that the player purchases, they'll receive one Reckoning voucher, or RVs as I like to call them, and they'll be added to the player account. Collect enough RVs and you can redeem them for real-life rewards. Say, do you enjoy grabbing a bite at Chili's? Well, 50 RVs will earn you a free appetizer coupon. 100 RVs will net players a buy-two-get-one free coupon at GameStop. Woo! When you earn rewards in-game, you earn rewards in real life. And believe me, there's so many more rewards, they're absolutely staggering. And if you think the real life rewards are great, just see what you'll pull from our loot crates. Yeah! And because we're all about the players, we're putting Tides of Reckoning 2's development into your hands. As of right now, players can begin crowdfunding the game through Kickstarter, Fig, Patreon, GoFundMe, and, as some of you may have already noticed, we have a few collection plates making their way down the aisles. Woo! This is your game. Let's make it happen. So you're probably all pretty excited, right? Yeah. But what if I told you we had something else up our sleeve? What if I told you that we already know what lies beyond Tides of Reckoning 2? Oh yes, I'm serious. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about Tides of Reckoning 3. Now, Tides of Reckoning 3 is still quite early in development, of course. However, I can already confirm that it will be 8 times the size of Tides of Reckoning 2. Following the shocking death of our hero at the end of Tides of Reckoning 2, players will find themselves in the shoes of a brand new character. Only this time, this mysterious new hero may be on the wrong side of the law. Our Reckoning vouchers and loot crate system will return, expanded and better than ever before. Players can now choose to have the NPCs not only be whatever gender they want, but they can have the NPCs be any species, whether it's be animals, plants, rocks, because choice matters. And speaking of choice, every single action in Tides of Reckoning 3 will have unbelievable consequences. If you turn the camera to the right to look at something, that will create an alternate timeline for the game, splintering off in a bold new direction. So maybe when you play Tides of Reckoning 3 a second time, you might decide to turn the camera left at a certain point to see how the story diverges. These are just a few of the features we have at work for Tides of Reckoning 3. And like Tides of Reckoning 2, this game will be crowdfunded so that the players have complete agency over their experience. Woo! Now, before I leave you all today, I have one last surprise. If you would be so kind as to check under your chairs. Yes. What? Yes. That's right. In your hands right now is a promotional image for Tides of Reckoning 4. I'll just leave you with that as you make your way out of the arena. Thank you so much for coming, and enjoy your E3. Thank you. E3 2019 is almost upon us, the biggest event in video games, taking place in Los Angeles, California, beginning June 11th to the 13th, though it may as well be June, 8th is when the first, official E3 thing happens. I don't know, we'll talk about that. But hi, I'm Marcus Stewart, and welcome to Marcus Talks About Games. And here we are on the precipice of the Electronic Entertainment Expo. My last chance to talk to you guys before I fly out to LA. It's been a week immersed in video games, just wading through a sea of software and companies and developers, and I couldn't be more excited. So what this episode will be is pretty much all E3 focused, talking about the press conferences, the confirmed games that are supposed to be there, talk about some rumors or predictions that I have of what's going to happen at the show, maybe talk about a bit about what my plans are for the show, whatever else comes to mind. It'll be just me sitting here breaking things down. So without further ado, let's hop right to it. So, of course, the big thing with this E3 is not only so much what's going to be there and who's going to be there, but who's not going to be there. Of course, the biggest absence will be Sony this year. They are skipping the show entirely for the first time since the event started, really. And yeah, it's not even so much like they're not going to be on the show floor. Like, they're not even pulling a Microsoft where last year Microsoft left the show floor and moved all of their E3 stuff to the Microsoft Theater, which, if for those that aren't aware, it's actually right across the street from the convention center. They're just not going to be there, like, at all in any capacity. I don't even think they're running a state of play during the event. At least, probably not. If they were going to do it, I feel like they would have announced it by now. So that's a big deal. And of course, Activision also won't be there. No booth for them on the floor. EA isn't going to be there, which isn't a surprise. EA hasn't been in E3 for a few years now, but they're still doing their EA Play event, which is usually in Hollywood. I believe it still is. They are also not running a press conference for the first time this year. They are strictly doing their big, like, days-long live stream where they'll be putting gamers on camera, playing all those hot EA games, and talking about how awesome EA is, and along the way, dropping some news about their upcoming portfolio. And I don't know, maybe they'll have a celebrity or two on there to talk about things. Maybe Zac Efron will show up again, maybe Snoop Dogg, who knows? And there are just a few other third-party publishers that aren't going to be there, like smaller ones that you might not have heard of. I know a big one that pertains to me going, at least, is Focus Home Interactive's not going to be there. And that's a big deal for me just because I usually see them every year. I usually have an appointment, or actually several appointments with their stuff at all the E3s I've gone to. So this will be the first time that I do not have to see them. So for me, strictly from like a work standpoint, that's a big change. So yeah, with so many developers kind of dropping left and right, the floor plan looks a little bit different, especially the West Hall, which is the main hall that Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo used to occupy. Now it's mostly Nintendo. Like, they've got their big, huge booth that they normally have. I'm wondering what the theme of that's going to be. It probably will be Super Mario Maker, but maybe Animal Crossing 2. Last year, they didn't even have a theme. It was more of like a general Nintendo thing. Like, maybe Smash Ultimate was the theme, just because that was the game that had the most booths set up for it, and they had the giant Smash banner. But they didn't do like a themed booth like they did with Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild years prior. So I'm wondering if they're going to get like a Mario Maker thing this year. That would be my bet. But they got their big booth, and then they've got their other side booth, which is more for like private appointments. But yeah, the space that Sony would have normally occupied is now broken up amongst a bunch of other smaller booths. Like, there's like a weird like garden thing, like Unreal Garden, which I thought was Epic related, and maybe it still is. But I was trying to find a description of it, and it just was talking about some interactive art media thing, and I didn't see, unless I missed it, like anything associated with Epic. So I don't think it's like Unreal Engine Garden. It's just it's an Unreal Garden. Like, this is crazy. Like, how could this be impossible that this could exist? That kind of garden. Like, GameSpot has a piece of that Sony pie there. Some other just little booths. So yeah, it's weird. It's weird just looking at it. It's going to be weirder walking around it. The South Hall looks more or less the same in terms of like the big third-party publishers. The big third-party publishers are still there, like Bethesda, Warner Brothers, THQ Nordic, Capcom. They're all still in there. Square Enix. So I was like, okay, maybe it doesn't, like, at least from like a zoomed-out kind of bird's-eye view perspective, this area looks more or less the same. But yeah, even with so many players skipping the show this year, there's still a lot of big games, or at least games that we know of, that will be at the show. And I've kind of jotted down a list of the games that seem to be 100%
or close to 100% confirmed to be at the show, at least the noteworthy ones. And I'm just going to go through each of them. And I'm just going to go through each of them and just kind of give my thoughts. So, first up, the big one, Final Fantasy VII Remake is confirmed to be there. It might be the only shred of a like Sony exclusive thing that's going to have some sort of presence. Obviously, it'll probably be at Square Enix's booth, because where else would it be? Square Enix is doing their press conference again this year. We'll touch on that later. So that would almost assuredly have to be where that game shows up, because where else? But if you remember, Sony did their State of Play recently where they showed a new trailer for that, and they promised more to come here. I expect it to be, and I guess expect with a bit of hope to be, that it will be the confirmation of when the first episode of this game releases, like a release window. I won't go as far to say like a hard date, but who knows if we've learned anything from Death Stranding recently. Maybe there's some games that seem like they're going to be as far off aren't as far off as we think. So maybe they'll surprise us and be like Final Fantasy VII Remake this fall, at least Final Fantasy VII Part 1 or Disc 1. And I want to know how they plan, because this is still going to be episodic, which is somewhat disappointing. I was hoping that after they changed development to in-house, they would maybe scrap that a bit, but still going to be in pieces. And I wonder if it's going to, since the original game is already split into 3 discs, if they just stick with that, if like, okay, this has already been divided up in a way, so let's just do that. We'll expand upon each disc, but where disc 1 cut off originally is where episode 1 of Final Fantasy VII is going to cut off. That would be nice, at least in terms of, and this would only matter to people that play the game, but at least knowing when to expect this game to end and not being surprised by it. Is like, I don't want that anxiety of like, I'm going to know that, even though I've beaten this game before and I know the story, there's an anxiety of knowing that I'm not going to get the whole game the first time around. And I'm just going to be waiting for like, okay, when are they going to cut me off? When are they going to cut me off? And God knows how long I'm going to have to wait for the next episode, assuming they don't lay out like a roadmap detailing when each episode is going to drop. So if they were to say, okay, yeah, it's the same as the original game disc-wise, at least I'll know like, oh, yeah, okay, it's going to end here. I don't remember when disc 1 ends. It's been a long time since I played the game. But if they say that, I can look it up and go, oh, yeah. That's right. This is where you had to change this. So I kind of hope that, just so I know what to expect and to not get my hopes up or to be super nervous playing the game, especially if it's good and I'm not going to want to stop, to know like, okay, I know when the end is approaching, so I can mentally prepare myself for that. But I want that more than anything, is the release roadmap, or at the very least the release window for the first episode, an explanation of how it's going to be broken up, and then, like, an explanation for the gameplay. I want, like, a gameplay walkthrough of Final Fantasy VII. I want them to explain, like, this is how combat works now. This is how materia works now. Like, here you go. Like, if you got to do the thing where you get the person on stage to do, like, a live demo, which they probably won't, because Square doesn't really do, like, a press conference. They kind of have done the Nintendo style, like, pre-taped montage of trailers, basically. So, but even then, you can still do that. You can just like have a walkthrough. Like, Nintendo has mastered this with like their like the Mario Maker Direct recently of, hey, here we're gonna break down the nitty gritty of what this game is. That is what I want from Final Fantasy VII Remake at this point. Nothing else would satisfy me more than that. So I'm excited to see that and nervous, but just give me that. Just give me that, Square. Staying with Square Enix, it was recently confirmed that the Avengers game that Crystal Dynamics is working on, that they announced, I think it was 2017, like early 2017, like that brief teaser video with like the Avengers, like weapons, like Cap, Shield, and like Mjolnir. That is getting its full unveiling during E3. Finally, we're going to finally know what this game is. Apparently, it's got the official name of Marvel's Avengers, which, yeah, I guess for keeping track with like the Spider-Man game, like Insomniac Spider-Man is actually officially titled Marvel Spider-Man. Marvel's Avengers makes sense. And yeah, I'm psyched. I was surprised that it didn't get unveiled last year. Like, if you listen to the Extra Life podcast, which extralife.com, of course, who I go to E3 on the behalf of, which I will be again. So if you want to keep up with our content, keep track at extralife.com, see all those hot podcasts and videos and news stories that we'll be putting up during E3. I'll be plugging that again probably towards the end of the show just to really get you in there. But yeah, I predicted last year that we would get this a year ago just because of Infinity War coming out. It was like, what perfect time than right now. And, same thing this year. I mean, Endgame, people really love that movie. I really love that movie. Ride that wave of momentum and give us some more Avengers. So yeah, I'm super psyched for this. I wonder if this is going to come out this year too. Like, maybe it will. Maybe they, like Crystal Dynamics has been kind of pulling like a nether realm or whatever of just like they've just had their heads down working on this game and didn't want to show it until they could release it maybe 5 months later. Maybe this is a fall release. For some reason I don't get the impression that this is a next gen game. It could be, but something in my gut tells me that it's going to be this generation and that at the absolute latest it'll come sometime in 2020, like fall 2020, but I don't think this is going to be a super far away project. And maybe it's because Crystal Dynamics isn't, they generally don't announce things super far flung, like more than a year, maybe. And I'm wondering if this is going to be like in the same year that we're getting Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, is this going to be, it would have to be like a co-op game, because why would you make an Avengers game that isn't like a team-up game? Like I want to play with my friends. I want my friend to be Iron Man, and I want to be, Vision or whoever. And like if what their approach to co-op will be compared to what we're getting with Marvel, like they kind of like in a way they kind of have to compete with Marvel being the Marvel Ultimate Alliance being the smorgasbord, the poo-poo platter of all things Marvel, and then the Avengers game is just the Avengers, at least I would imagine. And that on paper seems like it's less than. It could be more because if it could be a different style of game, and if it's just it could be fun in its own right. I don't know. There's something just it seems weird, or maybe like in a way they're almost competing with themselves, and by that I mean Marvel. With like, we got our mega super Marvel game coming to the Switch this year, and then we got our other mega game that maybe is less mega because it's only focusing on one team or one property in the Marvel universe. I don't know. I don't even know where I'm going with this, honestly. You guys probably get what I'm saying, right? After I play Ultimate Alliance 3, will Avengers seem less than? Probably not. At least I don't think so. Because I love Marvel and I play any Marvel thing if it looks good. So, yeah. And I wonder what Marvel, like, Avengers lineup do they go with? Do they go with, like, because so many people have been Avengers, obviously they'll have the core lineup, Hulk, Cap, Thor, Iron Man, Hawkeye, Vision, Widow, Wasp, probably. But then you go like more like lesser known but newer-ish, and newer in the grand scheme of the Avengers history, but still old, like a Wolverine. He's been an Avenger for a while. Spider-Man, Black Panther. Who else? Namor's been an Avenger, right? Probably. I don't remember. Do we get the damn Submariner in there? And who's the villain going to be? Or villains? I want to know. I'm super excited to finally see what this game is. I'm a fan of Crystal Dynamics. Love those new Tomb Raider games. So they've definitely got a team with a pedigree behind them making this. And I'm excited to see them do something with a license. Especially one as right for video games as the Avengers. So pumped for that. Let's see. Next up, we've got Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. That's showing up at EA Play. We're supposed to get our first gameplay footage of that title. We've seen the debut trailer, which was all cinematic, just kind of setting the tone and the premise of what the game is. Now we get to see how it runs in action, third-person action game. The only thing Respawn has said about it is that it's going to have thoughtful lightsaber combat, which I want to know what that means. Is it more like a like in my mind, I immediately think to like a From Software game of like really deliberate, like hardcore combat. Like it's going to be like For Honor with lightsabers, basically, where like combat's more intimate one-on-one encounters, which would make sense because like most times in Star Wars, when you think about it, like most of the lightsaber battles are one-on-one fights. Like there's a few instances of like a old school God of War or like Dynasty Warrior style, where like you're a guy with a lightsaber going down, you're just mowing down waves of enemies that's not doesn't really happen often in Star Wars. At the same time, though, like who? I mean, I guess I was gonna say like who has a lightsaber, or how many people have lightsabers that would fight the character? Because the Sith don't have armies of lightsaber people. They're not like the Jedi Order. That's just not how the Sith operates. But it's kind of irrelevant because you got so many like stormtroopers and supreme troopers and ultra troopers and royal guards and mega ultra advanced lightsaber canceling guard man with cool mask people in Star Wars and whatever else they want to make up. I know there's a new lightsaber. I know there's a new stormtrooper class that's being introduced in the game, so you got that going for it. Maybe they have an unbreakable lightsaber armor. Who knows? But yeah, I'm excited. Respawn, again, much like Avengers, hell of a studio. I'm curious to see them do something third person because they've almost always done a first person game dating back to, the founders' origins at Infinity Ward doing the Call of Duty Modern Warfare series, and then Titanfall, and now Apex. Like, let's see what they can do with a third person game. I'm psyched for that. We've gotten a glimpse of that with Titanfall, but like the out of soul. Well, no, even that's first person. What am I saying? So yeah, whew. This is a big deal because it's a single player Star Wars game, no microtransactions, any of that stuff, no multiplayer whatsoever, and it's being published by EA. This has to do well. Like, so many people are worried about EA, ditching narrative-driven single-player games because they don't believe it's, or at least they seemingly don't believe that it's not profitable. Everything has to be like a service game, and I have no knock against service games when they're done well. I love like Destiny, and I'm into Dauntless right now and stuff like that. Like that model's fine, but I don't want single-player games to go away, and it's not like they are anytime soon. But in terms of EA specifically, if this game bombs, and especially after they've canceled other single-player Star Wars projects, this might give them the justification to be like, hey, we were right. People don't want this the way that they said that they did. So, regardless, like if the game is bad, then it's more of the team's fault. Like if the game's bad and nobody buys it, then that's on them. But if the game's amazing and nobody buys it, then damn you gamers for not supporting the thing. Just may the force be with this game. May the force be with this game, please. Please be good. Please sell a gazillion copies. Let's see. Next up, we're gonna see Cyberpunk 2077 again. CD Projekt Red will be in the house again. I don't know what they're showing. Like I don't know if they've got another fancy demo or if it's going to be hands-on. I don't think it will be. I don't have confirmation of that, but I feel like I think the general air is that it won't be playable. But maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, last year at E3, that was the talk of the show. Was that Cyberpunk demo. Like everybody was clamoring to find that CD Projekt Red meeting room because they were not on the floor. They just had their little secret meeting room where they were showing that 45-minute demo that rocked everyone's socks. And I was trying desperately to get in there. I was trying so hard. My friend Naomi Lugo, co-host of the Best Games Period, plug, who I will be going to E3 with, along with a few others in the writing team. She got the kind of sneak her way in there, and then she came to us as a convert. Like she had seen just the second coming of Christ and was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then they were giving out those cool cyberpunk statues to everybody that went. And I did manage to get one of those because story time. So talking about Focus Home Interactive earlier, and I can share this story now because it's been a year, but I had a thing where I had an interview with a certain developer, I will not say who, under Focus Home, that for whatever reason, they were ghosting other writers. Don't know why. They kept leaving their booth to go, I don't know, wander around Candyland or wherever they were going, but they just kept leaving during scheduled interview times and leaving press hanging. And without telling the PR people at Focus Home, and that was driving them nuts. And it was crazier because they were only there for an interview. They didn't have a build of the game. They weren't demoing yet. They were literally just there to give interviews for it. And it was just a couple guys. And then I was there to interview them. This was the last day of E3, so it was that Thursday, and they were my first appointment. And I show up, Focus Home lady, who knows me well enough at this point, because I've been there so many times. And like, hey, Marcus, what's up? I'm like, hey, I'm here to see this thing. And they're like, oh, Yeah, the devs, they're not here. Did they tell you that they rescheduled? And I'm like, no. And then she goes, oh my God. And you could tell that, like, I was not the only one to suffer this. Like, she was just like this was like the last straw almost. And she's like, yeah, honestly, they've been doing this for the whole show. Don't understand why. It's crazy, you know. I'm so sorry. Like, they have a spot open at like, I think it was like 2:30 or something like that. And like, would you want to come back and, you know, maybe try again if you're free? And thankfully, I had a gap in my schedule at that time. I was like, yeah, that's fine. I'll just do other things. And she's like, yeah, I'm so sorry. You know, this, you know, lame. And I'm like, don't worry about it. So, you know, hours go by. Come back around my 2:30. I'm like, hey, I'm here. Let's do it. And she's like, okay, let me go check. She goes check with the other PR person, because the way their booth's set up, and a lot of booths are set up if they're big enough, is that, you know, they have the public area for where like the fans can play their games, and then they have the second area that's for press only, and that's usually has like a second gatekeeper that you know, watches that like a hawk. So she tells the bouncer of the PR people to go grab the devs, and then he tells her that they're not here, and she comes back looking very upset, and I'm thinking like, oh no, something bad's happened. And she's like, they're not here. And I don't understand why they're not here. And I'm like, oh. And she's like, yeah. And then she just kind of like unloads a little bit, saying like, oh, they've been doing this the whole show. Don't get it. It's really annoying and, you know, unprofessional. Like just really just venting a little bit. And she's like, would you be willing to maybe wait for like 30 minutes or so? And maybe they'll turn up. You know, I'm so sorry to have to ask you that. And again, I had enough time in my schedule, so I was like, yeah, I'll wait. So she's like, you know, great. And so I go into the press area, and I'm just sitting down table, just chilling out, checking my phone. And then the second PR guy who guards that area comes up to me, and he also apologizes. And I reiterate like, oh, you know, it's not you guys' fault. You know, I can't, you know, it's no big deal. And they're like, you know, do you need anything? Like, no, I'm good. I'm just sitting there. And then eventually they gave me an art book. I got this art book from them that I guess they had laying around as kind of like a thank you. I was like, sure, I guess I'll take this. I don't have interest in it. I gave it away as soon as I got home. But you know, cool gesture, I guess. And then eventually the first lady comes back, and we're talking for a bit, just chatting. And she's like, have you seen that Cyberpunk thing that's been going around, like that demo that everyone's talking about? And I'm like, no, but one of my friends saw it, and apparently it's amazing. But like, I tried to get in earlier, and I couldn't get in. Like earlier this morning, I tried to go up to CD Projekt Red meeting room, and because it was appointment only. But if somebody didn't show up, you could potentially get in if you waited, which a lot of outlets that did not get invites were doing, like pretty much camping in front of the door to see if they can maybe be one of the lucky people, if they could be the Charlie Bucket of Cyberpunk, basically. And but my appointments were a little too close together that morning, so I couldn't afford to wait. I didn't have the time, which sucked. So I tell her this, and she's like, yeah, one of my friends saw it, and apparently she got one of these like statue things from it. Like, I guess they're giving them to people, and she gave it to me because she's not into it, but I'm not into it either. I don't really know anything about the game. And she looks at me and she goes, would you possibly want it? And in my mind, I'm like, absolutely, because I'd seen people going around with them. Like, again, Naomi, she had one, and not only did she have one, but she got it autographed by the creator of the Cyberpunk pen and paper game, who was in attendance at the demo, as well as like the leads at CD Projekt Red. So I was jelly, and I'm like, oh my god, I can get one now. But of course I refused, because like, you know, like that's an expensive like thing. And like, I can't just take that. So it's like, yes, I want it, but you know, I refuse first. I'm like, no, that's no. But she insists, she's like, no, because you've been so gracious with like this whole fiasco with these devs and waiting around, and you know, you haven't complained or anything. Like, I really appreciate that. And like, I don't want it at all, really. Like, it's all yours if you want it. And I'm just like, well, if you insist. And take it off her hands. So I got one of the super duper exclusive Cyberpunk statues that is in my office as we speak. Have never taken it out of the box. It's still in the same box. Haven't touched it at all. I'm debating. I'm like, should I just take it out the box? Like, the original reason I left it in because it had a QR code on the box, which I think linked to the press kit. But then I got the press kit anyway, like through traditional means. I mean, if that's what it was, I didn't need it to. But then I was like, the box is kind of cool, and also just as a collector's item, I'm just gonna keep it in a box. So yeah, it is in pristine condition, just sitting in my office. It's right behind me as I'm speaking right now. Wonder how much that thing is worth. I don't know if I'm ever in a need for money, maybe I'll sell it, but that probably won't happen because I'm rich, obviously. It's just nothing but zeros on my checks. So yeah, that was just a quick story about Cyberpunk 2077. I'm excited to see that game again. Hopefully CD Projekt Red isn't working their developers to the bone trying to make the game, though recent reports may suggest otherwise to a degree. I don't expect much of a release window. I just have a vibe saying like we're still not going to get anything on that front. We'll probably get like a revised gameplay demo or like an updated gameplay demo, I should say. I don't know if it'll be 45 minutes again, but I suspect we'll see more of what we saw and maybe like a few new systems. I'd say like just additions, like just building upon that first demo and saying like, okay, like remember when we showed you this thing before? Well, here's how we changed this up. And yeah, I still don't think it's going to be playable, but that would be really cool if it was. And God, if it's playable to the public, geez, like just forget about playing that. Like unless you're there opening, like as soon as those doors open. And I'm saying this to fans that might be listening to this. If you're planning to attend E3, that thing's playable. Good luck getting in that line before it gets capped. So yeah. We'll see if Cyberpunk can steal the show again for the second year in a row. Do a two-peat. So, what's up? Dying Light 2. Dying Light 2. I recently got a press release from that game in my email, I think yesterday or 2 days ago. Apparently Square Enix is now publishing that game. Because originally I think, it was Deep Silver? Or whatever that did it. The first game that published the first game, Deep Silver, Techland. No, Techland's the developer. Deep Silver's the publisher. Yeah, and now apparently it's Square doing it. Not sure how or why that came about, but yeah, it's gonna get the old Final Fantasy stamp on it. Square probably has more money. I don't want to say confirm either way, or I don't want to talk down to Deep Silver because Deep Silver's fine, but I mean Square Enix, man, they got that Kingdom Hearts 3 money for crying out loud. So yeah, that game, we haven't seen or heard very much of it since it debuted last year. I think it was at Microsoft's thing, I believe, if I remember correctly. I'm a big fan of that first game. I love Dying Light. Dying Light was a big surprise because I played Dead Island 1 and I thought it was fine, but like a lot of people complained, it was a far cry from what that original trailer was. And I thought it was just okay. Like it was totally competent, fine, more fun to play with another person. And I wasn't expecting much from Dying Light. I was like, oh, this looks like, Dead Island, but with just parkour. That it's just Mirror's Edge Dead Island now. And then played it and was just completely taken aback, not just by how well it played and how cool they implemented the parkour, but just like the story I was actually into, because I didn't give a crap about Dead Island story. Dying Light at least managed to captivate me on a narrative front. I thought the city, what was it, Hakam? Something like that, whatever the Middle Eastern city it was called. Like I thought that was a really cool looking like environment, and it was fun to run around, and I love the daytime nighttime stuff. I love how different it was, basically like two different games basically depending on the time of day, and those terrifying like super zombies with the weird mouths that came out at night. Those things were scary as hell. And yeah, what they've shown of this game with like choice, like having actual choice driven gameplay, and how the choices can branch off into different things, because now there's like different factions, and if you choose to help one, it might impact the city in one way and maybe have a negative impact in another way, like they showed last year the demo. But like, oh, if you choose to work with this gang to capture the water supply, that might help the city because they'll have water, but at the same time it might empower this gang who have now been emboldened and lifted on this pedestal because they're like, hey, these are the guys that saved us with the water. We love these guys. Suddenly they take over the city and abuse that power and maybe start taxing the water or something like that. So it's like, everything has a choice and or everything has a consequence, basically. Pros and cons to everything you do. So that seems really cool, and I want to see more of that. I want another gameplay walkthrough. I want to see that in action again. So And I wonder if that's another one that low key, maybe that's a next gen game too, or maybe at most I could see that being a cross gen game. Like I feel like that's gonna come out next year, and something about that just, again, a lot of these are like pit of my gut feelings. I feel like Dying Light 2 is gonna be a cross gen game, so keep that in mind. But yeah, I feel like I've been saying this a lot, and I'm gonna keep saying it. It's like I'm really pumped to see this game. I'm pumped to see all these games because I love video games and everything looks awesome. So I want to see some more of that Dying Light. Again, that first game was that game overachieved in some ways, and especially the way they supported it years after the fact, I think is admirable and something you don't see with enough games. So yeah, keep it rolling over there, guys. Let's see. Borderlands 3 is going to be there, of course. Not much to say about that. I said in my PAX episode that I wasn't that impressed by that initial gameplay reveal, strictly because it just seemed like more Borderlands, and the hook of Borderlands isn't a hook anymore, because back in the day, it was cool that you blended first-person shooting with Diablo-style loot and co-op. Now every game seemingly has that. Like everything is a loot shooter now, so Borderlands just isn't special anymore. In a lot of ways, some other games have done it better. So it just needs more than that. I'm sure it'll be fun just from a base standpoint, and maybe it'll be fun in the sense of like, yeah, this isn't new anymore, but like I want the Borderlands kind of old school style of this, like I could see the appeal of that. I mean, I played Crackdown 3 to completion this year, and I think that's a not good game, but I still had fun with it because it felt like there was something fun about playing something that antiquated feeling in terms of like mission design. I don't know. It was, like I said, like I documented this in the earlier podcast. Like it's just inexplicable how I enjoyed that game, knowing full well that it was kind of crap. So maybe Borderlands scratches that same itch of like, man, this feels like a game from 2012, and I'm okay with that. The trailer since then, like the seeing the Vault Hunters and the guns, and like, it's a little bit better, but I'm still, it's weird. I'm not as excited as the game that maybe I should be. I even before this game's announcement, like, it was always kind of an open secret that Borderlands 3 was being made. I always thought that they're gonna have to do something very, very drastic and big to make me get as excited as I was when the first game was announced, because of the hook not being a hook anymore. So like I'm still waiting for that like, yeah, like Borderlands 3. And of course it hasn't helped that Randy Pitchford and his seemingly endless stream of drama has really stolen the spotlight from the game itself. Like every time Borderlands 3 is in the news, it's always attached to like Randy Pitchford says some dumb shit again, or he's, he left another flash drive at a medieval times with questionable material on it. Just things like that. Like it may as well just have Randy Pitchford on the cover with his shoulders shrugged saying oops, and then featuring Borderlands 3 or something. I don't know. So yeah, I hope that game's good, just to overcome all of the BS around the leader of the studio, and my heart goes out to all the developers working on this game that's had to kind of put up with that. So I hope it's good. I really hope that game is something more than what it looks like. Let's see. Doom Eternal will be there. I love me that 2016 Doom. I got into Doom super late, where I didn't play much of the original Doom back in the day. Like the most I've ever played of it was a friend of my mom's, who was like the cool friend, I guess, had Doom on like her computer at home, and we were over her house for like a cookout, and then I got to play Doom at some point for a while. That was the first time I'd ever played it, and like I was probably like 7 years old maybe at the time that Doom was new, and I thought it was cool. But yeah, I didn't play those recent games until like the last few years. Like I played both of them, Doom 1 and Doom 2 Hell on Earth, on Xbox One through backwards compatibility, ran through both of those games. Still have never played Doom 3, but I love Doom 2016. Like that still is arguably the best shooter of this generation in my opinion. It was refreshing as hell to play, because it's funny, and pretty much took what was old and made it new again, while adding some pretty great smart tweaks, like the glory kills, the like physical attacks. And Doom Eternal looks a lot like just more Doom 2016, but I think I'm okay with that as a second game. I'm fine with more Doom 2016. Just, if you add more enemies and, cooler, more elaborate levels and, just polish up what you already had, which was already polished up to a diamond. So if you can somehow shine up a diamond even more, go for it. I don't know if it's gonna have multiplayer. That was the only thing that was kind of the weakest spot about OG Doom, or at least Doom 2016, I should say. And not that the multiplayer was bad, it was just not up to snuff compared to the campaign and a lot of other multiplayer modes. So I don't know if Doom Eternal is gonna have multiplayer, if they're gonna take another stab at that. But at least they've got a foundation to learn from. Could you imagine if Doom Eternal had a campaign that was as good as like a Call of Duty, or not a campaign, I should say, a multiplayer mode that was as good as like a Call of Duty or a Battlefield or something like that, on top of having an amazing campaign? Like, holy crap. I guess Titanfall knows what that's like. So Titanfall 2 specifically. So yeah, that game, I want it, and I think that's supposed to be this year, right? I feel like every time I've seen the tentative date for it, it's 2019. I hope that remains the case, just because more Doom the better. And of course, there's Wolfenstein Youngblood, which is coming out this year too, and that hasn't been talked about as much. Maybe because that has a more solid, that is for sure coming this year, and maybe it's because it's not so much a Wolfenstein sequel, but it's kind of like an Old Blood or New Blood. What was it? What was the expansion for the original Wolfenstein? Was it the New Blood or Old Blood? You guys know what I'm talking about. Like, it's basically that kind of like a Far Cry New Dawn thing of like, it's a standalone expansion thing that is its own game but is not Wolfenstein 3. But that looks cool. Hopefully it's not as relentlessly and overly difficult as Wolfenstein 2 was, because as much as I love Wolfenstein's 2 and in terms of the story and just the crazy series of events that play out, the actually playing that game was a bit of a nightmare because it was just too hard for its own good. Even at easy mode, like, it was badly designed hard, not like good hard. So I hope that Youngblood has learned from any of the criticisms that Wolfenstein 2 got. But regardless, having that and Doom Eternal come out in the same year would be effing glorious. Let's see here. Apparently, there might be a new Darksiders game getting shown. I was reading a news story about this where, so E3 Coliseum, which is I'm still not entirely sure what E3 Coliseum is. Like, every time I go to E3 the last couple years, I think this only started when the fans started coming in. At least I think. I'm pretty sure that's the first time I saw it, was that first year when the fans came in. It's like a separate area outside the convention center where I think it's like a bunch of panels and stuff. I've never been to any of them just because I've been too busy to go to them. Like, I know Tim Schafer is going to be there with Jack Black to talk about Psychonauts 2. We'll touch on that in a little bit. But yeah, apparently there's a leak with E3 Coliseum's lineup where I think the Avengers game got sort of kind of leaked through there before it was confirmed. And now this new Darksiders thing where apparently that's going to show up in some capacity, either at a panel or just something. And from what we understand from their little description of it, it's the development is going to Airship Syndicate, who fans may remember developed Battle Chasers Night War. And also, that team is made up primarily of ex-Vigil staff. And of course, Vigil was the team responsible for the first two Darksiders games before they closed after the original THQ went bankrupt. And yeah, so this would be basically Vigil going back to make Darksiders, because Darksiders 3 was made by a different team. It was Gunfire Games, I think, where they were called. So it was not the Vigil crew for the most part. So this would be a homecoming for them. And the other thing that stood up was that the new Darksiders was described as going into like a new direction for the series, which I haven't played Darksiders 3, but apparently that was a little bit of a departure, because I've heard that game plays more like Dark Souls than like the kind of God of War meets Zelda gameplay of those first two games. So I guess would it go to like... Would it still be a third-person action game? Would it be an RPG? Kind of like, Battle Chasers? Would it be something like that? Maybe it's a Battle Royale game. Maybe it's 100 horsemen, 104 horsemen dropping onto an island. Or maybe it's like an Apex Legends thing where it's teams of 4 horsemen dropping into a hell island, and they fight to the last horseman standing, Who knows? But sure, more Darksiders. Why not? Cool to see that series is alive and kicking. I need to play Darksiders 3 at some point. Maybe it'll be free on PS Plus or Games of Gold at some point. Let's see. Yeah, like I said, Psychonauts 2 is gonna be there. I was again on the E3 floor plan. I saw that Double Fine has a booth on the show floor, which I don't remember if I've, at least in the years that I've gone to E3, I don't remember if I've ever seen them have a show floor booth, which I guess makes sense because what was their last big release? Oh, that's a good question. Was it like Broken Age comes to mind, but there must have been something in between Broken Age and this. Like, and I like Broken Age a lot actually. I don't think that game gets enough credit, personally. Hack and Slash was before Broken Age. Like, I'm specifically like the end of Broken Age. Like after the second part of Broken Age came out, what has Double Fine launched or shipped? I don't remember. I really can't think of anything outside of like remasters of like Full Throttle and Days of the Tentacle. I don't know if they've done in like a new game. And I'm blanking. Somebody correct me. I don't feel like looking it up right now, but if you know, please hit me up. But yeah, Psychonauts 2 is coming out this year. I'm super pumped. I love that first Psychonauts game back in the day. Big fan of it. I think the new game, from the little bit of footage they've shown, it looks good. It looks like a new Psychonauts. Hopefully the platforming has been polished up. Apparently it has been. I've seen some of the dev videos with them talking about it, and it seems like that's a big focus for them, which makes me happy. And Jack Black's in the game. You know, like I said, him and Tim Schafer will be at the E3 Coliseum thing talking about Psychonauts. I would imagine they would show maybe a new trailer or just some new footage of the game in action, and maybe we'll get like an actual release date out, because we know it's coming out 2019. The last time we saw Psychonauts 2 was during the Game Awards last year, where it's got its 2019 release window. But yeah, I'm excited that Double Fine's just on the show floor. I want to wander over there. I've always wanted to meet, like, I don't know, like I've always wanted to meet like people that worked at Double Fine. When I was a Game Informer, when I interned there in 2015, little known fact for those of you that might not know, I actually was responsible for breaking the news about Psychonauts 2 when it was announced. I got to interview Tim Schafer and get the full skinny of what Psychonauts 2 was, and I wrote this like 3-page feature for Game Informer, and by 3-page I mean like online. It wasn't in the magazine or anything, but it was I think it was weird because when it was pitched to me, it was crazy. Again, story time here. Ben Reeves came up to me one day in the office and was like, "Hey, you know, would you be interested in interviewing Tim Schafer?" And being a Psychonauts fan and a fan of Double Fine, I like did a double take of like, "You want me to what?" And I'd never interviewed anyone ever at that point, like at all, in any form. So I was like, and I'm waiting for like interview with who? Like, it can't just be me. Like, I'm probably working with one of the other editors, right? And he's like, "No, it's just gonna be you, just you. You think you can handle that?" Like, he's gonna be talking about Psychonauts 2, and that again, as if my mind wasn't blown enough, I was like, "Wait, Psychonauts 2 is happening? Like, that's a thing?" And I'm like, "Yeah," like, you know, I'm like, "Oh yeah," and I'm trying really hard not to fanboy when I'm telling this. Like, "Yeah, I love Psychonauts. I know all about it. I love Tim Schafer. I like Double Fine. I played a lot of their games. Yeah, I want to do that. I can do that." And I cannot tell you how nervous I was going to that interview. Like, I spent the night, 'cause I think it was like a couple days later, and when I went home every night for those 2 days or whatever it was, I don't know if it was 2 days, maybe it was a week, I don't remember. Basically, I spent like nights just writing down interview questions. I was picking the brain of like Ben Hansen, because I knew he was a Double Fine fan and he's been to the studio. So I was like, "Hey, what would you ask Tim Schafer if you could interview him?" And I got some good questions from him, and just walked away with this very substantial list of questions. And then going into that interview and sitting in that meeting room alone with the phone in front of me, waiting for this conference call with this guy that I like and admire. And also my big first, like, for me, like a big milestone in my career of like, I'm doing my first ever interview as a games writer, and it's with Tim Schafer to get the news about Psychonauts 2, like this unannounced project that people have been fantasizing over for years, and I'm the one responsible for this. Like, holy crap! And it's not only that, but it's a thing I'm amazed. Like, I'm super psyched for this too. So like on one hand, I'm like psyched just as a fan to pick his brain, but at the same time, like this is all on me. Like I have to ask good questions. I gotta like I'm the I'm the voice of all the fans. Like I gotta nail this. I gotta make sure I ask everything that I know I would want to know if I was reading a big preview about it. And he came on. He was super nice, and long story short, had a really good interview. And it was funny because not only did I learn about Psychonauts 2, but he also dropped the Rhombus of Ruin, the VR game. That's kind of the chain of memories of the series, or basically it like bridges the gap between Psychonauts 1 and 2, and which I wasn't told that was in existence. Ben didn't mention that was another thing, so he caught me off guard because I was like wrapping up the interview, and he's like, "Oh, you want to hear about the Rhombus of Ruin?" I'm like, "The what of the what now?" He's like, "Oh yeah, we're doing a Psychonauts VR game," and I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "Yes," and I didn't have any questions for it because I didn't know about it. So then I in that same piece, I guess I got the break 2 games in that same piece. And if you're curious about reading that piece, you can find it on Game Informer. I'm sure it's there if you Google like Psychonauts 2. I think it was like and that's when the game was first about, because if you remember, the game was going to hit Fig to get crowdfunded first. So I think the title of the story was like Psychonauts 2 was happening if backers funded on Fig or something like that. If you want to Google it in Game Informer, you'll find it. Still very proud of that piece. Still one of my favorite just moments and things I've done in this business. So yeah, Psychonauts 2, I hope it's playable. I hope it's at their booth. I want to get my hands on that thing, so I will be hunting them down for sure in between my appointments to give that a look-see. Let's see. Death Stranding isn't going to be there as far as I know, because that's a Sony exclusive, and as we've established, Sony is like deuces to E3 this year. But still, I just wanted to touch on it because I watched the like 8-minute big trailer thing that had the release date, and yeah, still don't know what the moment gameplay will be in that game, but it's got some Phantom Pain vibes just in terms of like the animations and like the way combat and stuff, like moving around. Like I know watching the whole time, like you're Norman Reedus wandering this big open field, and the way combat played out, it just gave me strong Phantom Pain vibes. And I love Phantom Pain. Like gameplay wise, Phantom Pain is fantastic. The story, the structure of it, and of course it being kind of unfinished, it is what it is. But as a playing game, Phantom Pain's awesome, to me at least. So I was like, okay, this got some of that. I just want to know what the like, what are you doing? Like, the whole thing with the story of like, it seems like you're trying to like you're talking to, like the trailers, like Norman Reedus talking to like the president who's like in bed and like dying, and she's like, you gotta reform the United States of America, and Norman Reedus is like, America's dead, basically. That's my Norman Reedus. Hey, dead. I don't watch The Walking Dead. I think the only thing I've seen Norman Reedus was the Boondock Saints forever ago, and I think that's it. So I don't actually really remember what Norman Reedus sounds like outside that trailer, but he's like, yeah, jar babies, yeah, the BTs they're bad. Nah. That's no disrespect to Norman Reedus. But I was like, so are you traveling across the country to try to like, I don't know, like basically, like, I don't know what you would be doing that for, but are you like walking to like city to city, and like, is it like a big road trip game basically, and then you're fighting like a terrorist faction along the way, and Mads Mikkelsen is there, and Guillermo del Toro and all these other people. They went down the cast list, and they have the character names, and kind of like in true Kojima, like Metal Gear fashion, they all have weird names. But the one that stood out to me is that there's a character named Die Hard Man, like die hyphen hard man, like Die Hard, like the movie Die Hard, but it's man, Die Hard Man. And I literally paused the video and went back, so I saw, it's like a glimpse of like Die Hardman, played by this guy, and then moves on. I was like, wait, did I just see what I thought I saw? And then went back and found, it's like, whoa, like no way. And it's like a guy who's wearing like a half skull mask. So I was like, is this like a like a John McClane looking guy? Is this like a Die Hard reference? And it has to be, but I'm wondering what a guy with a skull mask has to do with Die Hard. I want to know what the connection is other than name. I gotta know, but like that might be the greatest character name of all time. Like, and Kojima's got a pretty good record with character names. I still think that Hot Coldman is a terrible name, but hilarious. Of course, Hot Coldman, the villain from Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker. But Die Hard Man, okay. A-okay with Die Hard Man. I want that. I want Terminator Man and like Fight Clubman. Can we get them like? I just want action movies turned into people names. Demolition Man. Demo. Would it be Demo-Lition Man? Also, and maybe it's because I finished Kingdom Hearts 3 recently. Oh yeah, by the way, I beat Kingdom Hearts 3. So probably won't talk about that today, maybe next time. But yeah, but the guys in the yellow suits that your Norman Reedus is like throwing his briefcase at in the trailer, that reminded me of the hazmat monsters from the Monsters Inc. series, like the little yellow guys with the multiple arms. Like that's all I thought of was like Norman Reedus is just beating up those dudes from Monsters Inc. But yeah, that game is coming November 8th of this year. Like, holy crap, what a shock. Like, I think everyone pegged that game for 2020 at the earliest, and also that it would either be a next-gen game or at the very least a cross-gen game. But no, it's coming this November, and we're not getting a PlayStation 5 till next fall at the earliest, if Sony is to be believed. So, yeah. We're stupid, I guess. Not stupid, but we're wrong. We're all wrong. Like, what a surprise. And it's replacing the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, because that was supposed to come out the day before. It was supposed to come out the same day, November 8th, or was it November 10th? It was 10 or 8th. It was either the day before or day after my birthday, because my birthday is November 9th. So I lost Sonic, but I gained a Death Stranding. Fair enough. Fair enough trade. Man, imagine if that came out the same day, though. Sonic and Death Stranding. Like, holy crap, what a birthday, and it's not even my birthday yet. But, the pre-orders are open now. They got some fancy collector's edition. I glanced at it on the PlayStation Store. I didn't really see anything in a collector's edition that made me want it outside of the making of video. Like, I would love to watch that so I can know what the creative process was behind the name Die Hard Man. But there it is, Death Stranding, coming this year, November 8th. Like, that still blows my mind. Like, I made peace with the fact that was going to be a PS5 game and wasn't coming till next year at the earliest. And Kojima, man, always full of surprises. You sneaky, you little scamp, you sneaky scamp, you. Always knowing how to get us. I bet when I play the game, you don't even play as Norman Reedus. You play as Norman Reedus for the first 5 minutes, and then the scene at the end of the trailer where he's about to blow his brains out with a gun, that's actually the beginning of the game. He kills himself, and then you play as his jar baby 20 years later. He's grown up into a full adult, and then he is the protagonist. Or she. Maybe it's a woman. Who knows? It's a mystery. Wait for November 8th to find out.
How's everybody doing? This is exciting. We're at E3, and I just want to say this place is the only place that makes the guys at Comic-Con look like Ocean's 13. Take a minute. Come on, that was... Video games, they've been... Where are my jokes? Oh.
Okay, press conferences. Or at least, like, live stream events, whatever they may be. Some of them are having press conferences, whether it's, like, Nintendo Direct, pre-recorded things, or it's someone getting up on stage saying, hey, look, check under your seats, Xboxes. That hasn't happened in, like, 9 years. And every time I go to an Xbox thing, I'm like, man, I hope there's something under this chair. Nothing. But let's see. I'm going to go in semi-order here. First off, we've got EA Play. Once again, they are not having a conference. They're just streaming their festivities for a couple days or so. Like I said before, we're supposed to be seeing Star Wars. There's also supposed to be the Season 2 of Apex Legends is supposed to get unveiled. And I believe we're going to get some Anthem updates, which we recently got the first details of the first Cataclysm event coming to Anthem. They did their little live stream thing. I have not played Anthem because I like my money. So yeah, but I hope that game gets turned around. It doesn't seem, I don't want to say it doesn't seem likely, but it doesn't seem like it's going to happen anytime soon. Like, I'm pretty much waiting for that game to be done, we'll say, like finished, like in an acceptable state before I ever consider throwing money down on it, because I think that there is a foundation there, like there's something there, but it's buried too far under a bunch of bullcrap for it to be worth my time, basically. Like, I have so many other games to play that there's no reason for me to spend any significant amount of time with Anthem until it's in a better state. So I hope that whatever they decide to show or do is the first big step towards righting that very much adrift ship. And yeah, I would imagine that they're probably going to announce another indie game. That's kind of been their thing these last few years. Like, they've announced like their EA originals, like what was the first one? Like, I don't think this is the second one, but like Faye was announced, the game FE Faye, which was not a very good game in my opinion. I didn't really enjoy it that much. We got Sea of Solitude, which was announced last year and was recently confirmed to come out, I think it was July. And that game looks really cool. I'm actually looking forward to that one. And then Unravel, that's what it was. Unravel was the very first one of those. So I would imagine we'll get a new indie kind of a darling from EA. I'm looking forward to see what that is. And I would imagine we'll get like, the usual stuff like FIFA, Madden stuff. It's Pele show up during a live stream to play FIFA with Zac Efron. Always possible. Sip of coffee for the gaming man. So yeah, like most years, I don't generally expect much from EA just because EA doesn't have much, at least that you would imagine, to show. So I hope a surprise. I would love to see something new, like a new IP, just a revival of a franchise we haven't seen in a while, something like that. Like something genuinely that makes me go, whoa, what's EA got going on over there in Hollywood? So we'll see. Next up is the biggest one of all these is Microsoft doing their Sunday, June 9th. They decided to herd that thing a day earlier. And yeah, there is quite a lot that's supposed to go on here. First and foremost, Phil Spencer got on Twitter and said that we will see 14 first-party games at this conference. The key thing to note here is that he didn't say 14 new games, just 14 games. So I would imagine if we're thinking about the stuff that they've already announced that's first party, that would have to be Gears of War 5, as well as the other two Gears games that got announced last year, Gears Tactics and Gears Pop, which is like the Funko Pop Gears thing. We haven't heard from either of those pretty much since E3, so I would imagine that's just Gears things would be a focal point. So that's 3 right there. Halo Infinite, I would imagine, would get shown, so that's 4. There's almost assuredly going to be a new Forza this year. I guess this would be the time for Forza 8? 8, right? We're up to 8 on the regular Forza series, so that's 5. And then from there, it gets interesting. It's like, well, what do you do after that? Like, there's been some scuttlebutt about a new Fable. So let's just say that Fable 4 gets announced. I'm actually fairly confident, as opposed to previous years, that a Fable announcement of some kind is coming. So let's say that's 6. Ori and the Will of the Wisp hasn't come out yet, and it won't be out before E3, so that's probably 7. Let's see. Things that have already been announced that's a Microsoft first party, or at least like an exclusive game. I'm struggling to think of any outside of those 7, so that's half of the lineup. And then, we have the games coming from all those studios that they acquired in the last year, basically, like Ninja Theory, Obsidian, Playground Games, and the others that I'm failing to remember at the moment. It seems unlikely that any of those studios will have anything ready a year later to show. I mean, maybe they'll tease something, because the other big thing from this conference is that this will probably be when Microsoft unveils their new hardware, like their next gen
platforms or consoles or whatever their next gen plans is going to be detailed here. I mean, they teased it last year, whatever their next box was. And, you know, with all the stuff with them bringing Xbox Live to everything, like they're almost like Netflix. It's like I could probably access Game Pass on my microwave now. So, is this the announcement of either new hardware or I should say, Microsoft establishing Xbox as more of a platform than like a box, where it's like, hey, you know, like Xbox is like an app now too, so you can get Xbox on your Switch and you can play your, you know, Ori and the Blind Forest there on your Switch. Pretty cool, huh? That would be pretty cool. So I expect both of those, honestly. Like, hey, new box, also Xbox Live is a more agnostic thing than it was before. So with that in mind, I would imagine maybe we'll see at least one of those new studios tease whatever game they're working on, like maybe a logo and like a very brief teaser, like just something to be like, hey, we're working on a next gen thing for Microsoft. Here's the title of it. And, you know, no release date, no nothing like that. Just like, hey, this is what we got cooking, basically. So, you know, out of the like, who else did they get? They got Compulsion, who did We Happy Few. That's one of the studios they have now. Who hasn't released the game in a while? Let's see. Ninja Theory, Hellblade released in 2017. So maybe them. Obsidian, probably not. They have the Outer Worlds, trying really hard not to say Outer Wilds, which released recently on Xbox Game Pass. Outer Worlds is coming out later this year, so probably not them. Playgrounds does Forza, so they would be covered. And they're also potentially working on a new Halo game. Like another team within Playgrounds is working on Halo 4, I'm sorry, Fable 4. Playgrounds, the Forza crew, the Forza Horizon crew, I think specifically, is doing the next Fable, allegedly. So maybe that'll be their thing. Compulsion did just release We Happy Few last year, so I would be surprised if they had something new to show, but, you know, there's always, like, you know, some studios have other teams, like splinter teams, working on new stuff all the time, so, you know, stranger things have happened. But yeah, so I let's say we'll see at least seven brand new first party games that we haven't seen before, and then, you know, the ones that I guessed. So Microsoft is they are by far the biggest one, and they're kind of the big fish in a somewhat smaller pond. That is E3 this year, so they're the ones I'm most excited to watch out of everybody's. I'm really, really pumped and curious to see Microsoft's. Let's see, we've got Bethesda as well. They seem pretty cut and dry. We're going to see absolutely Doom and Wolfenstein. And I would imagine we'll get some sort of Fallout 76 something, like maybe an expansion or some kind of update. But I would be, even though it can't be fun to get on that stage and talk about the game in any capacity, especially after last year's conference where there was, you know, that was like half of the conference, it felt like, was hyping up Fallout 76 as a big thing and all the jokey little, you know, things Todd Howard was doing, like, you know, the stand-up comedy with Todd Howard. Like, did they even have the gall to do that this year with Fallout 76? Like, will they actually get on stage and be like, hey, you want to hear a joke? Fallout 76, wah, wah, wah. And then it's like a close-up of Todd Howard's like shrug shoulders face, like, oopsie. I don't know. How do you address that game without being ultra sincere and saying like, hey guys, we heard you, we messed up, but here's some exciting new stuff we got coming for the game, you know, give us another chance, all that good stuff. Elder Scrolls Blades might get something, because that game is still, unless I'm wrong, that game is still like in a beta, right? Like, it's not fully released yet, but it is playable and you can buy things in it, so it's like an early access basically. So maybe that gets like a, you know, maybe some more updates and then like a release date. I do not expect to hear anything whatsoever about Starfield or Elder Scrolls 6, because why would you? Especially Elder Scrolls 6, because that's supposed to come after Starfield, and Starfield's a far way out. Maybe, you know, let's see, do we hear anything from Arcane? Well, no, because Rage 2 just came out, and I think some of Arcane worked on that. So maybe at most, maybe you get like well, Rage 2 is getting like, they have a roadmap of content coming out throughout the year, so they'll probably touch on that for sure. It's like, hey, here's some big stuff for Rage 2 coming. Let's run that down. Andrew WK is here. We've got him back, guys. We know you wanted him. Encore performance, Andrew WK. But yeah, I don't expect anything particularly new. Just kind of updates on their existing stuff. That's about where Bethesda sits with me. Devolver Digital is doing their not a press conference, like their little parody of a conference, which is becoming less and less I don't say funny, but the joke isn't as witty as it once was because so many people are not doing press conferences anymore. It's like, what do you make fun of at this point? So I mean, maybe it'll make fun of that. Maybe it'll make fun of people pulling out of E3. Who knows? But they usually show off some interesting things. Devolver has no shortage of really, oftentimes quality, third or rather indie games under their umbrella. So like the one that stood out for me last year that they showed was My Friend Pedro. I think that's what it was called. The weird like kind of bullet time side scroller shoot 'em up with the banana guy. I saw that at PAX this year, but didn't get to play it. So maybe that'll show up again. Other than that, it's hard to guess what they'll show with Devolver. They always have like, surprises. So outside of it being a really wacky thing, I think the only other big surprise was that it's earlier this year. I think it starts. Let me look because I actually have the press conference schedule in front of me. It is at 7 p.m. Pacific time, Sunday, which is nice because they usually do it like 10 or some late time, and that was annoying when you're having to write about these conferences as they happen, having to stay up that late to cover another conference. It's not ideal. It's not ideal. So appreciate the earlier runtime or start time this year, Devolver. Thank you for that. Monday we got the PC gaming show. That's kind of another thing where it's kind of hard to guess because it's like are these games always exclusive to the PC, or did they come to consoles too, but maybe they come to PC first? I'm not a PC gamer. I do play some games on PC, but I'm primarily a console gamer. So it's like I like watching it and I like seeing the games, even if they make me somewhat sags. I'm just asking like, this is gonna come to console too, right? Because that game looks like it would melt my computer if I tried to run it. Like my computer would pull out a little knife and commit seppuku the moment I tried to fire it up because it just failed to do it and it felt ashamed of itself. So yeah, I can never really predict what the PC gaming show is. That's always a surprise. Limited Run Games, who is the company that primarily just manufactures physical versions of indie games for a limited time, hence the name. They do an E3 game every year, and they're kind of similar to like Devolver, and is usually indie games. So it's hard to guess what they're gonna do because a lot of times it's stuff you've never heard of before, and you're hearing about it for the first time. So they're a hard one to call. Ubisoft, they are Monday as well. In fact, now that Microsoft's not on Monday anymore, the PC gaming show kicks it off first at 10 a.m. and then Limited Run at noon, and then Ubi at 1, which is like their normal time pretty much. I would say the only thing at Ubisoft that I would bet my house on in terms of appearing is Watch Dogs 3. All signs seem to point to Watch Dogs 3. It just feels like not only just the right time for that, like enough time has passed between Watch Dogs 2, but there's also no Assassin's Creed this year. So Ubi has to have some like big thing for their holiday season, and like I said, like just the timing, it's time for a new Watch Dogs, it feels like, as well as the leaks that have gotten out. Like apparently, according to some leaks prior to the show, that it's going to be set in England, I believe London specifically, and that you might play as a woman. And yeah, and I also heard a thing that there might not be no guns, which actually I think would be fantastic because I've never played Watch Dogs 2, but I did play Watch Dogs 1, but it launched, and even that felt kind of odd at times to use a firearm. One, because it wasn't the best shooting game, like it was, adequate, but not great. And just the idea, like, I don't want to, like, the entire point of this game, at least for me, is I just want to hack into things and do cool hacker things. Like, if I want to fight someone, I want to fight someone with this crane that I hacked into and do some really clever way of taking people out, not getting into a, cover-based shootouts, especially if you're not, like, that great at them. So I've heard that was weirder in 2 because the characters didn't seem like someone that would go around shooting people.
character's name is Marcus too, which I still need to play Watch Dogs 2. I've heard that's better than Watch Dogs 1, so I would like to get that at some point. Yeah, so I would say Watch Dogs 3 is pretty much a lock. I would be absolutely shocked if that didn't show up. So, other than that, I mean, there's the possibility of Splinter Cell with that tweet from, like, I think he was a producer or some person at Ubisoft that said something on saying like, oh yeah, me and my boys have been working on that new Splinter Cell, pretty cool. And then everyone's like, what? And then later on he was like, oh, don't retweet this, it was a joke. But it didn't seem jokey at all. It seemed very sincere and more like a, oh crap, I let the cat out of the bag and my bosses are upset at me, I better get in front of this now. So I'm going to say that Splinter Cell will appear in some form. I think that tweet was genuine. I don't think that was a joke. Other than that, let's see, no Assassin's Creed this year, but it doesn't necessarily mean they can't tease it for next year. So, especially with that other leak from a little while ago about it being focused on Vikings Assassin's Creed. Sure, I could see a trailer for that, like a brief little teaser or something like that, and a logo. Do we get another Nintendo collaboration? Do we get Mario versus Rabbids or Mario and Rabbids 2? I could see it. I don't. Well, I would say I don't think so, but I think that's a toss up. I like that first Mario Rabbids game for the most part. It wasn't perfect, but I thought it was way better than it had any right to be. Because I think when that was announced, I think we can all agree that we thought that was just an abomination that should be killed with fire. And then it wound up being a totally fine and enjoyable XCOM kind of light. So I personally wouldn't mind a follow up to it. Like take that really, really strong foundation and just, add to that. Or do they get another Nintendo license to play around with? Do they get maybe something that Nintendo themselves can't be bothered with? Like, maybe Kid Icarus? I don't know why Kid Icarus is the first one that came to my mind, but you don't get a lot of those. Maybe, like, with Mario Rabbids doing well, I think it's sold all right. Nintendo trusts Ubisoft to do some other things with their portfolio. So I could see another Nintendo Ubi collaboration. Beyond Good and Evil 2 apparently is getting a live stream after E3, not during the show. So at most they'll probably mention that just to remind you, like, hey, tune in next week to see Beyond Good and Evil 2. But other than that, we don't have it here. So I think that's about it for that game. And then there's after that it gets kind of murky. Ubisoft has a pretty big portfolio. They can always announce new things. Let's see, the games that we know about, Skull and Bones was delayed to next year, so I feel like we need to see that game again just to justify why we should be excited to wait for this game, basically. Like, I think they should show it again, like a new gameplay demo, one to remind us, like, hey, this is what this is, and like, look how awesome this looks. Can't you see why we need another year to work on this? Like, it's going to be worth the wait. So I feel like Skull and Bones, I don't think it will be there, but I feel like it should be, just because I've lost almost all interest in that game. For Honor will probably get something. Like, they've been updating that game a lot in kind of classic Ubisoft fashion to be very good. They're very, very good at supporting their games long after they launch. I think Rainbow Six Siege might be the shining star of that. Rainbow Six will probably get a mention. I think, wasn't it last year that it got the esports documentary around it, or was that the year before? It was in recent years that they did that. So I don't know what you would do with Rainbow Six at this point. Do you announce another like operator or something like that? Maybe. The Division 2 will probably get some lip time with like an expansion or update or something. This probably won't happen, but I would be cool with a new Rayman game. Rayman Legends was 6 years ago. Can you believe that? 6 years ago. It was at the launch of the new consoles, or around the launch of the new consoles, because it was cross-gen. We haven't had a Rayman game since. And I know Michel Ancel is busy plugging away at Beyond Good and Evil, and as well as that Wild game. That was his too. Remember Wild? The PS4 exclusive with the dude that turned into a bear and all the other animals and had the giant snake lady.
You look it up if you haven't seen it. It was shown like I think it was at the Paris Game Show like 4 years ago. Yeah, it had to be because I was at Game Informer interning when that game was announced. Like when that happened, it was like that was 2015. I haven't seen it since. So Michelle Ancel has time between that and Beyond Good and Evil 2, two projects that are kind of seem like they're years away for some reason. Maybe he's been working on a Rayman game since then. Or at least another team within Ubisoft is, because you don't need Michelle Ancel to work on Rayman, do you? I mean, does he have to be involved? I mean, I don't know. But man, I would like a new Rayman game. It's been a long time since those games, and they're real good. Those or at least those recent ones are good. I mean, the old ones are good too, but these like Legends and Origins specifically, like another one in that style. Do you do that again? I'd play it, and I know this won't happen either. But every Ubisoft, I go in with the very faint hope of a new Prince of Persia game. It's just my tradition. So it's not going to be announced. There will not be a new Prince of Persia, but I'm just going to be like, man, it'd be cool if we got another Prince of Persia. I'm just saying, Sands of Time, wall running and stuff. Remember when you had the dagger and you stabbed the thing and it got sucked up into the dagger? Can we get that again, please? Or at the absolute very least, and this is even more unlikely, can we get a remake, not even a remaster because we kind of got that already, but a remake of Sands of Time, like a ground up Unreal Engine 4, whatever you want to, contemporary engine on remake of Prince of Persia Sands of Time. I would be fine with that. That would be awesome. I'll take that if nothing else. But I feel like that's less likely to happen than just a new Prince of Persia, honestly. So there it is. I'm just going to put it out there, put it out to the universe. Maybe it'll happen. Maybe it won't. Actually, not even maybe it won't. It probably won't. But what if it did? And yeah, Ghost Recon Breakpoint will absolutely be there because how could it not be? It's coming out this year. You got to show that game off. So I think that it'll about... Oh, actually, no. Before we wrap up Ubisoft, we got to get our Just Dance segment. Like every year, it's just, you got to get your kind of cringy but goofy Just Dance party somewhere. Someone's going to be dressed up like a panda. Someone's going to be dressed up like a giant tomato or a hot dog or just whatever. Maybe someone will be dressed up like the Prince of Persia just to really rub it in that a new game isn't happening. And go on stage and in the aisles and dance, and everyone's like, oh, look at those dancing things. This is crazy. For anyone that's never been to E3, like physically, if you go by Ubisoft's booth, they always have the Just Dance like dance parties during the show too. Like you'll walk by, and at some point during the day, or multiple points really, they'll have like all their costumed people on like the stage area they always have. And they'll just have these giant dance parties, and they'll get people that are, attendees to go up and dance with them and stuff like that. And I always walk by it every year as it's happening. Like I don't try to see it. I just always happen to walk by when it's happening, and I take a look, and I'm like, yep, here we go again. There, that guy is. And I always get nervous of like, I assume you have to volunteer for that, but like, I always have this weird anxiety of like, they're going to pluck me out of the crowd somehow. Like they're somehow going to notice me. I don't know how, but they will. And be like, hey, come dance with the giant sandwich. Come on, you. And then the camera's going to be on me. And then it's like, I got to get to my appointment or whatever. Then I got to be the party pooper, and everyone on the internet hates me because I'm that guy or something. I don't know. But yeah, Just Dance 2020, I guess, would be because it's always the next year. It's like football. That'll be shown because it's Just Dance. Just Dance is inevitable, like Thanos. So that's it for Ubisoft, at least as far as I can guess for what would be their lineup. Let's see. Kind of Funny Games is next. Monday's a big day for press conferences, if you haven't noticed. So Kind of Funny Games, of course, Kind of Funny, Greg Miller. He started, I think they did their first showcase, was it last year? I think they started doing it, but it's more or less like a big indie showcase. It's kind of what I feel the Sony and maybe less so Microsoft, but Sony especially in the last few years kind of got away from, where Sony, especially at the beginning of this generation, was kind of known for having those big like indie show pieces where like remember E3, was it 2014 or it might have been 2013 when they were promoting the PS4 prior to launch, that they had all the indie devs come up on stage and they all got like a moment to kind of talk about their game.
They used to be really good at that, and in the last few years, they've kind of, as the press conferences become more and more focused around like one or a batch of titles. There hasn't been any room for any indie stuff, which is has been disappointing. But kind of funny, it's kind of gotten out where they have enough clout now where they can court developers to be like, hey, you got a game that for whatever reason you can't get on to one of the other 27 press conferences. We got a home for you right here. Come here. Come sit next to Greg Miller. Maybe I'll awkwardly bump into him again at E3 and we can take another kind of awkward selfie. But yeah, that should be fun to watch. Again, much like Limited Run and Devolver, it can't call at all what'll be showed. I would imagine 90% or to 100% of it will be all new stuff that has getting their big debuts. So we'll see. That's a low-key fun one. Square Enix. I've already said that Final Fantasy VII will be shown here because, yeah, as well as the Avengers game because, yeah. But what else after that? That's an interesting one. So let's look at what they showed last year that we haven't seen. So there was the that night game. What was that night game? The one they showed the brief teaser of last year. It's like two knights fighting each other. Oh my god, what was it called? The name is on the tip of my tongue. Like, I remember briefly thinking it was a new White Knight Chronicles before I remember that Level 5 did that game and not Square. But if you remember, it was like a teaser of two medieval knights in like a sword fight, and that was like it. It was like a cinematic. It wasn't anything special. It was just that and the title that it's failing to escape me, and it'll probably come to me later on. When it comes to me, I'll just yell it out, so I don't want to spend too much time trying to figure it out now. But that game will probably appear again, and I guess now that Dying Light 2 is under Square Enix's umbrella, that's a spot for that game to make its appearance again. So let's just say Dying Light 2. Let's see. The Quiet Man already came out, and we're all the better for never mentioning that game again, because that game's awful. I bought that game at launch just out of morbid curiosity, even after hearing the pre-release bad vibe around that game. I just had to know for myself because it was so weird, and yeah, the game was garbage. So The Quiet Man 2 is basically what I'm saying. We'll get or maybe they'll just call it The Quieter Man. Who knows? Maybe it's the blind person game. Like, instead of playing as a deaf guy, he plays a blind guy. His name is Matt Murdock. He lives in Hell's Kitchen. Of course, the only blind person in existence. But do we get, let's see, Dragon Quest Builders 2 comes out later this year, so that'll probably show off. It's already out in Japan. Dragon Quest 11S or whatever, the like Nintendo Special Edition, that could show up if it doesn't show up during the Nintendo conference. Let's see. Crystal Dynamics is only, there's no new Tomb Raider. No new... What else could they be? They're interesting. I mean, Final Fantasy 15's done. Like, I think that episode Arden already came out, and that's the last bit of it, because now that roadmap was pretty much canceled. So maybe Final Fantasy 14 will get something, but other than that, I don't expect any Final Fantasy anything that's not 7. So I don't know. Last year's Square's conference was pretty disappointing. I'm going to say now it's probably going to be the same kind of letdown in terms of like anything new that you wouldn't expect or don't already know is going to be there. So I'm not expecting a ton from Square, but Avengers and Final Fantasy VII might be enough if they show some substantial footage of those games. And then finally, we've got Nintendo on Tuesday. All to themselves. They're always the morning of E3, which makes them really annoying and hard to cover because every year that their conference starts, we are already in the convention center. Like, E3 is starting. So like, I never write about Nintendo, like, and only because I'm never assigned to. It's always Naomi for some reason. So I've always learned about Nintendo on the floor, which can be tough because the internet in the convention center can be pretty spotty because you got so many people and so many devices that, like, I usually catch the direct, or at least the announcements from the direct, either walking by Nintendo's booth and like they'll be playing it on the treehouse, like snippets of it, or there'll be monitors around the convention center that'll be airing it. Like, that's how I watched some of the Smash stuff last year, and then I realized later that was the whole show with Smash stuff, and I was like, oh, I must have missed the other stuff because I keep seeing Smash, unbeknownst to me. So yeah, Nintendo has a lot that they could talk about this year. So we know that they're going to talk about Animal Crossing. That is a fact. They already said that. So we should be getting the actual title of that Animal Crossing game, the Switch game, of course, that's coming out this year, and the walkthrough of what this is. I mean, in terms of what separates it or what makes it different from the other Animal Crossing games, because other than that, it's 100% going to be an Animal Crossing game, at least I would imagine. Mario Maker 2, it'll probably get some lip service, but they just had their giant 17-minute direct breaking that game down, so I don't think they need to spend any more time with that, especially since it comes out in June. So it'll probably, like I said, just get a mention and then that's it. Luigi's Mansion 3 will get something. Let's see. Link's Awakening, the remake that's coming out later this year. I hope they show more of that. Fire Emblem Three Houses comes out supposed to be kind of soon too, so we'll probably see that. Astral Chain, the platinum game where you're like the cop with the handcuffs and the robot. That thing looks really cool. I really, really, really hope to see Bayonetta 3. Okay, so I just remembered the name of that night game. It was Babylon's Fall. That's what it was for Square Enix. Babylon's Fall. I'm just going to throw that out there now. I know I'm still talking about Nintendo, but it just came to my mind. There it is. So yeah, back to Nintendo. Let's see, Bayonetta 3. I don't know if they're gonna show it or not, honestly. For something, I feel like it needs to. Just looking at it from time fast, it needs to get something here, just some sort of mention or confirmation. I just need a pulse. But other than that, do you go another E3 without talking about Bayonetta 3? I mean, Platinum's got Astral Chain. I'm going to say yes. You know what? I'm going to be bold here. I think they're going to talk about Astral Chain first because that's coming out this year. And then right after that, they'll be like, hey, that's not the only game Platinum's working on. Remember, they've got Bayonetta 3. And here it is. And it's going to be a really brief thing. I'm going to say a quick trailer, but it'll be a reminder that that game exists. And then a release window. I'm going to give it a year. I'll say 2020, maybe spring 2020. That's my guess. There it is, on the record. You can thank me when I'm right. So yeah, I really hope so, because I love me some Bayonetta. But what else? Let's see. They got that town game, which I've been very curious about, the RPG that takes place in a single town. I think that's a cool idea, and I hope they see more of that. Again, Dragon Quest Builders 2 could show up on the Nintendo stage. Let's see. Do we get anything new? Did they announce anything new? Because Nintendo's already got a pretty beefy 2019. I mean, Pokemon Sword and Shield, that's getting its own direct, I believe, this week. So I don't think they need to talk about it again at E3 just to, why do that when you just gave it a direct? Use that time for a game that needs it. So, Metroid Prime 4 is not going to get mentioned. The game just got started over, basically, so there's no way they're going to talk about that game. I would be very shocked if it's mentioned at all. Let's see. A new Mario thing? Nah. I think that they got the Mario Kart mobile game, but I don't think that'll get mentioned there. I think it's just going to be Switch stuff, so I can't think of anything. Nintendo, in terms of new things, it's kind of hard to predict. The only new thing that I could ever predict is a Kirby game, because it feels like we get a gazillion Kirby games every Nintendo generation. So Kirby is like Thanos. He's inevitable. So I wouldn't be shocked if they say hey, you got a new Kirby thing. Here you go, Kirby. Kirby's battle cry. He's like a Pokemon. Kirby. So yeah, I think that's about it. I think the biggest question mark that could conceivably happen is if Bayonetta 2 shows up or not. And I'm just going to go on a limb, and this is just a complete hope guess, saying yes, Bayonetta 2 or Bayonetta 3 will appear. And that'll be it for Nintendo. But I think outside of Microsoft, in terms of the sheer glut of things that they have to talk about, they're right up there. They have a very, very beefy 2019 just in terms of first-party stuff, let alone all the third-party stuff that they have now. So, yeah, that wraps up all the press conferences, briefings, live streams, whatever you want to call them. In terms of things that could still get announced that, don't fall into the traditional, like, conference, I guess, stream of news. I mean, so one of the big ones every year, or at least the past few years, is Rocksteady, developer behind the Batman games. Every year we find ourselves asking, hey, what are those guys up to? They gonna announce that Superman game yet? Remember last year how it seemed almost a guarantee that they were gonna announce a Superman game and then that didn't happen? Is this the year we finally find out what they're tinkering on? Is it a next gen game? I feel like it would have to be at this point. But then again, like Death Stranding, who knows? Maybe it's coming out November 8th too, whatever the hell it is. Maybe it is Superman. Maybe it's another Batman. Maybe it's a new IP in general. Maybe they're doing Submariner. Maybe that's where Namor appears. He's not in the Avengers game. He shows up as a Rocksteady game. Finally, Namor, the Submariner, the video game. Marvel's Namor. But yeah, maybe, I don't know. Maybe, you know what? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say Rocksteady will announce their thing on their time. I don't think they're saving it for any big stage. Because when have all the other games been announced? Like, have they ever announced any of the Batman games at E3? Like Arkham City and Arkham Knight? Those weren't announced at E3s, were they? I don't think so. I think they just kind of release or announce things when they feel like it, basically. So I don't think we're going to hear from them again this year. So not really got my hopes up for that. Of course, no Rockstar, because Rockstar doesn't go to E3 because they're too cool for that. No Valve stuff, of course, because Valve doesn't go to E3 either because they're say too cool for that, but they just don't. Let's see. I'm trying to think of what else could happen here. I mean, I'm just hoping for, even though we're at the end of the generation and we're going to start hearing about new hardware and just the next generation in general, I would like to still see new AAA franchises or IP announced at this E3. Because I think that's, thinking about this generation as a whole, now that we're kind of winding down, I've just been thinking about like end of generation stuff of like, what's the best game of this generation? What's the best series? What are the big new trends and ideas that came from this generation? Like, I'll probably do a podcast about all this stuff down the line because I've been writing it down, just pondering it. And I was thinking specifically about new franchises that have emerged this generation. And by franchise, I mean not like a new IP, but like a franchise in terms of like we got at least 2 games out of this new franchise. So not one-offs like a Bloodborne or Sunset Overdrive or anything like that. Like, what if we gotten like a series, like a new series, like how the previous generation, like, the PS3, 360, Wii generation, we got Uncharted, we got BioShock, we got Borderlands, we got Gears of War, Forza, just so many big series came out last year last generation. Infamous, I could go on and on. Whereas this generation, I was writing it down and I was legitimately having a very hard time. Like, I think the list that I came up with off the top of my head without doing any research was Destiny, The Division, Splatoon, Watch Dogs, and Titanfall. And that was about it. Again, these are franchises that have had at least 2 entries in it. So not one-offs. I just want to stress that. And then everything else was either a sequel to an existing series or like a revival / reboot of like a dormant franchise, like a Doom or Wolfenstein. But yeah, I was disappointed by that. That's probably, I think, the most disappointing aspect of this generation is just not enough new stuff, or at least new stuff that was followed up on, basically. So it's probably too late again for any new franchises to get off the ground, but you never know. Like, let's just see some more new. That's what I want. More new. I'm going to print a t-shirt that just says that in big. It's going to be a black t-shirt with just big block letters. It's going to look like Becky Lynch's The Man shirt. but it's just going to say more new and just walk around E3 like that. And I'm sure everybody will totally get that out of context. So that's my biggest takeaway from E3, or my biggest hope going in. More new. Let's do it. Hashtag more new. So, yeah, let's see. Man, we've been talking about E3 for close to, an hour, 40 minutes or so. So, yeah, I think we can wrap this up now. This was a lot of fun to talk about, and I hope it was a lot of fun for you to listen. And again, if you're going to E3, either as a fan or maybe as a fellow, press or developer, hit me up. Maybe we could bump into each other on the floor or something. Say hi, get a drink on the show floor or coffee. God knows we'll need it. So, I'm looking forward to hearing what you think about the show, what games you want to see, what announcements you're excited for or hoping for. And you can do so by following me on Twitter at MarcusStewart7. That's the number 7. And you can also find this show, like, share, and subscribe, by the way, and parentheses, on YouTube at Marcus Makes Media, as well as SoundCloud at Marcus Makes Media. And you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, at Marcus Writes About Games. Got it? Marcus Writes About Games for iTunes and Apple, Marcus Makes Media for SoundCloud and YouTube. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, you can follow all of our E3 coverage at extralife.org. community.extralife.org specifically, where me, Jack Gardner, Naomi Lugo, Zach Wojnar, we will all be hard at work at E3, publishing articles, all the news, all of our games that we get to see, our hands-on previews, all that good stuff. We'll also be doing daily live streams, about 15 minutes or 20 minutes or so on Facebook, kind of recapping our show floor experience at the end of each day, as well as every night we will be publishing or at least not publishing, but we will be recording a podcast, kind of going a similar recap, but a much longer form discussion. I don't know what the release schedule will be for those podcasts, but we will be recording them at the end of each day. So just follow Extra Life on Twitter or Facebook, and you should get all that information there. But yeah, be sure to check us out on Extra Life. Support Sick Kids Children's Hospital. It's a very, very cool site. Very, very great cause. So please show us some love. And also, as an update, I won't be having an episode next week because E3 will be happening and I will be way too busy doing E3. So no episode next week, but I will be back the following week, probably with a podcast as long as this one, breaking down my experience at E3, sharing some stories, as well as giving my thoughts on everything that happened. So it'll be the aftermath of this crazy week we got coming up. So with that said, thank you so much for listening, guys. Enjoy E3, have fun, no matter what happens. This is our Christmas. It's the most exciting time of year, and I hope you guys enjoy it. And I look forward to speaking to you guys again once everything is done, once the dust is settled. So until that time, happy E3. I'll see you guys in 2 weeks.